Hello and welcome to Healthy Bites. My name's Dr. Ron Ehrlich. This is a new segment for this year where we are going to have a short episode which highlights either the podcast of the week, a past podcast, or a story that has come up that I felt I wanted to share with you. I wanted it to be positive. I wanted it to be uplifting. I think this is a really important part of our weekly routine to try to do just that. So I hope you enjoy Healthy Bites. Hi, this is Dr. Ron Ehrlich and welcome to Healthy Bites. Now this week I'm going to be exploring heart rate variability. Now heart rate variability is a relatively new thing which has really come out of research done. I think a lot of it was done in Harvard in around 2016-17. But it basically looks at, as the name implies, the variability in our heart rate. So to put this in perspective, if, for example, you have a heart rate of 60 beats per minute, you would expect that you would have a heartbeat every second. And that means that you would have a very low variability in your heart rate. If, on the other hand, you had a heart rate of 60 beats per minute and you had a heartbeat at 0.7 of a second, and then you had another heartbeat at 1.2 seconds, and then the next one was at 0.9, and then it might go to 1.14 seconds, etc., and it all averages out to 60 beats per minute. But actually the variability between those heart rates is higher. That would indicate a good thing, because heart rate variability is inversely proportional to your inflammation within your body, and it is suggested that it's a good reflection of your immune function. So the higher the rate of heart rate variability, the lower the level of inflammation in your body. And remember, this is another theme that we've talked about from various angles, and that is that chronic inflammation is the common denominator in all diseases, physical and mental. So chronic inflammation is the common denominator. The higher your heart rate variability, the lower your inflammation, and presumably the better your immune function will be. Now, as we get older, our heart rate variability reduces. As we eat poorly, as we sleep poorly, as we are exposed to various stresses, and remember, I define a stress as anything that compromises your immune system and promotes chronic inflammation. So this is why we have this 5 stressor model, enabling you to identify stresses that have the potential to promote chronic inflammation and compromise your immune function. And that's why also, on the other hand, we're looking at building resilience by focusing on the 5 pillars of health. So to remind you, those 5 stressors are emotional, environmental, postural, nutritional, and dental stress. Those things that can compromise your immune function and promote chronic inflammation and therefore chronic disease. And on the other hand, to build resilience through focusing on the 5 pillars of health. And to remind you of those: sleep, breathe, nourish, move, and think. Now, when I was introduced just recently to heart rate variability, I found this a revelation. I thought it was really interesting, and I was introduced to this through this week's guest, Dr. Howie Hindon. Now, Howie, as you will hear in this podcast, is just a really inspiring character. He's a dentist with actually probably 10 more years of experience than me, so I kind of see Howie as a little bit of a mentor for me. I've so enjoyed connecting with him. We both found ourselves as dentists, as presidents of organisations that brought together doctors and dentists. Howie is the president of the American Academy of Physiological Medicine and Dentistry, and I, for 2 years, I've just stepped off that role this year, was the president of the Australasian College of Nutritional and Environmental Medicine. And for us as dentists to find ourselves in that position. We were introduced through another guest on my podcast, the legendary Dr. Rosalba Courtney, who's done her PhD on breathing and we've spoken on several occasions about breathing in order to balance out body chemistry. And we've done an episode on breathing as a way of intentionally stressing the body with Dino Gladstone and using the Wim Hof method. So Howie introduced me to the idea of heart rate variability as an excellent way of measuring health. And so I actually invested in a device which measured my heart rate variability. It's a Whoop. Now, I'm not doing an advertisement for that because that's a whole other story. My device, which sat on my wrist 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, was very interesting in what it revealed to me about my own heart rate variability and how that might vary, but I stopped using it because I didn't want the Wi-Fi radiation. We're going to be doing programs on that as well. But this week's focus was on that topic of heart rate variability. And there are many things you can do to improve it, and there are many things you can do to make it worse. And of course, that's true of health. So it's not surprising that heart rate variability might be another way of measuring that. So heart rate variability is the theme for this week. We're going to be having some resources about that in my blog posts and Instagram posts, but I hope you enjoy this week's episode, which I have done with Dr. Howie Hinden from New York, USA, and I hope you enjoy it and find it informative. So until next time, this is Dr. Ron Ehrlich. Be well. This podcast provides general information and discussion about medicine, health, and related subjects. The content is not intended and should not be construed as medical advice or as a substitute for care by a qualified medical practitioner. If you or any other person has a medical concern, he or she should consult with an appropriately qualified medical practitioner. Guests who speak in this podcast express their own opinions, experiences, and conclusions.